Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining me today on drsue.ca. Now that we're very much in the thick of the COVID pandemic, I'm sure everyone's seen a lot of news articles about the concerns around excess alcohol consumption during this crisis. There's been a lot of discussion about the adverse physical health effects of alcohol, the mental effects and consequences of excess alcohol, and discussion of domestic violence as well, which we know goes up when there's excess alcohol consumption. In fact, the European branch of the World Health Organization has made a call to increase reinforcement of restrictions on alcohol consumption to try to avoid some of these negative outcomes. As an obesity and metabolic syndrome blogger and doctor, I thought that we'd take a few minutes today to talk about the metabolic consequences of alcohol consumption. And because immunity is so important during the COVID pandemic especially, we'll talk a little bit about the effects of alcohol on immunity as well. So first of all, what is alcohol? Well, it actually is a source of energy. So we have three dietary sources of energy, being protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And there is also a fourth source, which is alcohol. Alcohol, in terms of the calories, provides about 7 calories per gram. So you can compare that to protein or carbohydrates, which gives about 4 calories per gram. Fat gives about 9 calories per gram. And when we say per gram, we're talking about pure 100% alcohol. So that's not what we actually drink. We actually would drink some of the choices you see below in the slide. So if you look at a glass of wine, a standard glass is 5 ounces. That's roughly 120 calories, but that will vary depending on what type of wine. A 12-ounce serving of beer, 5% beer, is about 160 calories. Again, that varies. And a standard serving of hard alcohol like vodka, that's 1.5 ounces. That's about 100 calories. But don't forget, the calories don't stop there. You have to also look at what's in your mix. So, for example, if you have a mixed drink with some hard alcohol, you can easily get up to 200, 300, 400 calories in your quarantini, so to speak, depending on what you put in it. The next point to remember is that when you drink alcohol, it shuts down the metabolism of everything else. So you're not doing any fat burning, you're not burning any carbs. Your liver, which is this funky little hat here on the left, it's supposed to be a liver, it looks more like a hat, but that being said, the liver is busy trying to metabolize alcohol because it's a toxin. It's a toxic product to our body. So our liver shuts down everything else. It's working to get rid of the alcohol. And in addition, the calories that you're getting from the alcohol give you no sense of fullness. So you don't get any feeling of satisfaction that you've had calories the way we do when we have protein, carbohydrates, or fat. Now, what if you have diabetes? Well, there's lots of concerns with alcohol and consumption in a person with diabetes, especially to excess. So the first point is that the carbohydrates in your drink will elevate your blood sugar. So depending on what you're taking in, you have to be thinking about how that can affect your blood sugar. And that's even with one drink. To excess, alcohol can lead to poor decisions about diabetes treatment, how much insulin to take. It can also affect eating patterns and cause a person to eat more or less than they otherwise would. One of the scariest things about alcohol in people with diabetes is that it increases the risk of low blood sugar. So that can happen on the short term if poor decisions are made with regards to insulin dosing, for example. But also, probably the most scary thing is that later on, like in the evening after a person with diabetes has been drinking, it impairs the liver's ability to release blood sugar. And that can result in low blood sugars, which can be severe low blood sugars hours after alcohol consumption, which often end up being in the middle of the night. Now, a comment on alcohol and immunity. Now, this is not my field of specialty. I'm an endocrinologist. I'm not an immunologist, but I think it's important to share that alcohol impairs immunity. So I've seen some things on social media that drinking alcohol would be good to destroy the COVID virus. Absolutely not true. So alcohol impairs viral immunity, it impairs bacterial immunity, and actually chronic alcohol abuse has been shown to be associated with an increased risk of acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. And this is actually one of the features of severe COVID infection is ARDS. So alcohol, absolutely not a good thing for immunity. It is a bad thing for immunity. That is clear. Alcohol messes up our sleep as well. So if we're not sleeping well, then that can also make weight management more difficult, because messing up that circadian rhythm of hormones can actually lead to weight gain because of that hormonal influence. Not having good sleep can also make it hard for us to cope. We're in a severe pandemic and global crisis. We're in an economic crisis as well. We need to have good restful sleep in order to be able to cope with the stress, anxiety, sadness, all of these emotions that can come from being in this situation. On the note of coping strategy, the concern about alcohol during this time is that it can become a coping strategy. So this can be a slippery slope. A drink one night can lead to 2 drinks the next, 3 drinks a day the next week, especially being at home, maybe being bored. It can be a slippery slope into excessive consumption. Alcohol can alter moods as well, and this is part of the concern again, is the increased risk of domestic violence and abuse in the home. There's a risk of an addiction. And we haven't even gotten to the effect of alcohol in excess to other parts of our body. Alcohol is harmful to all body parts to excess. Increased risk of liver disease, cancer, increased risk of high-risk activities as well. So there's really a lot of concerns about alcohol consumption getting out of control, especially during this time. So what can you do? So the first thing is to be aware of your alcohol consumption. You don't want to have a bottomless glass. Be aware of what you're drinking. Be honest with yourself about what your alcohol consumption is. Ask yourself, why are you having a drink? Are you having a glass of wine because you like how it tastes with the meal that you're having? Or are you drinking to cope with an emotion? And if so, is there a better way to cope? Could we go for a walk instead, or could we call a friend instead? Be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, are you on a slippery slope to excessive alcohol consumption during this time? It's also really important to make sure that there's days when you don't have any alcohol, because if you feel like you need alcohol every day, that really suggests that there's a problem. And finally, and probably most importantly, if you think that there's a problem, that you have a problem with alcohol consumption, reach out for help. Talk to a friend, talk to a family member, be honest about the situation. There's lots of addiction hotlines in most provinces in Canada. I'll put a link to that in my website blog, drsue.ca, which will link to addictions hotlines, which are available in most provinces in Canada. Call your family doctor's office and ask for help. This is some suggestions of some things that you can do. Make sure you're getting help if you think that there's a problem. Thanks again, everyone, for joining me. I know that was a difficult topic tonight, but I think it's a really important one that we need to address. Please check out my website, drsue.ca, for lots of information about COVID-19. Thanks again.